Exciting morning. I'm actually on the road today. I'm bringing the truck box with me. It's hooked up to the truck right now, and we're headed over to a buddy's place. He's a metal fabricator and has some equipment at home. I'm getting him to sort of help me, or well, really, I'm getting him to build the fenders for me for the trailer. The reason why I'm getting someone else to do it is, well, there's a couple reasons why. It's actually going to be cheaper, more cost effective if I have, let's say, a professional do it. I looked into buying like a little MIG welder and doing it myself because I do have some experience welding, but by no means I'm good at it. I'm just an amateur. But at the cost of the equipment and then the material itself, it's still cheaper to get someone else to do it. It is my design. I, behind the scenes, have been working with him, drawing and producing drawings, and I've made a 3D model, doing some measurements and some, cardboard mock-ups. And essentially I want this thing to be as multifunctional as possible, right? That was the most important part of this build. And so one of the ideas I have for this fender is that I actually have a removable portion that can either act as a ski, or when you flip it upside down, act as a ramp. If we can build that, I think that would be pretty awesome to have a fender ski ramp. The other thing is I also want this thing to be super durable, and I want to be able to mount gear to it or step on it and use it to sort of step on and access the roof. And so this thing needs to be super durable. So heading to his place now, and hopefully we don't get pulled over because right now I'm pulling a trailer on the road with no fenders, so that should be fun. So here we go. Alright, so we have the rough mock-up done. These are the 3 flat pieces, and then this is the front part where the fender ski is going to be, and then this is the top of the wheel well. So essentially we just tacked everything in place, and now we've sort of roughly got it equal, and so we're going to cut pieces, 4 equal pieces going down on the angle, and then just making sure that those are all exactly the same. It'll allow us to have a sort of square fender. frame's all tacked up. Looking pretty good. It's nice and square. And then now we're just getting the angle pieces cut so that we can test fit it onto the trailer. Alright, so we have the fender sort of fabbed up and tacked. We're test fitting it onto the trailer, and I had to remove the trim to clamp it in place. Because this thing weighs a lot and is going to have a lot of gear attached to it, it wants to sag down, and we need to sort of add some support, something bracing the top of the fender here to keep it from sagging. Unfortunately, I think the best solution is that I'm gonna have to cut out between the two wall studs here where the bolts are and remove the wall finish and the insulation down to where the aluminum panel is and the stud itself, and so we can add an interior piece of structural support. So basically I'm just cutting out a notch about 6 inches down and between both studs. Not a big deal, c'est la vie, just things we gotta do to make this work. So here we go. Needed to do some undoing for structural support. Okay, holes cut. We made a lot of progress on the fenders, but because of the pandemic and lockdown, I was unable to return to the shop and help out. The fabricator was left to finish the fenders, and here are some progress photos that he shared with me. Here he's welding some angle iron on the bottom of the fender so that it can be mounted and bolted to the frame of the trailer. And then here's a test fit of the fender on the trailer, which is looking pretty nice, and there's just a temporary bracing piece to keep the fender square while we're moving it and taking it on and off the trailer. After a couple more weeks, there's some more progress, the other fender's done, and then the plate is starting to be installed. Alright, little update for you guys. I now have the fenders, they're at home, and I've had to relocate shop, so the trailer's just outside in the driveway. Here's back at home. I had to move out of the shop, and so all the work now is being completed in the driveway. Beginning of March, so weather outside still pretty little chilly, but at least I was able to finish most of the build inside a nice heated workshop. So fenders are next. The fenders are pretty much near complete. I just have to clean them up and then I'll be painting them. The fabricator wasn't able to get to the ski removable part, so that will be in the second part. As you can see, these are some heavy duty big fenders. These things are basically bulletproof. You know, they're made with some 16 gauge steel plate and then 1-inch tube. And so I'm just going to go with a wire wheel, clean up the surface, get ready for paint. And then how it's going to be connected to the trailer, like I was trying to explain before, is we have some angle here on each end on the bottom that will get bolted through to the frame of the trailer. And then again, up at the top of the wheel well, I have some holes and a plate that's going to go on the inside, and that will be bolted as well. But for now, I'm just going to start cleaning these up, getting them ready for paint. Here we go. Okay, so that's the first fender pretty much all cleaned up. I'm gonna go again with my wire wheel now and my drill to just clean it up properly before paint. But I just went ahead with the angle grinder and just cleaned up all the welds, made it nice and clean. So move along, gonna do the same thing for the other fender. Here we go. Holy, that was a lot of grinding, but here we are. I made a huge mess with dust everywhere now, but the fenders are now clean. I went ahead and grinded all the welds, made them nice and clean, got rid of all the surface rust. I will probably just go ahead and clean the steel paneling with some 80 grit or 100 grit sandpaper on my palm sander. And then essentially I'm just going to do a wipe down, clean the garage space, and set it up for paint. The paint I will be using is a semi-gloss Tremclad, just a simple black. And it is a primer paint, so I don't have to do any primer. And then I'll probably go and add some clear coat on top of that to protect it. You know, in the final stages, going to be installing them on the trailer soon, in the driveway, in the snow, which should be fun. Gonna wait for a milder day to accomplish that task. Okay, so I just finished drilling the holes for the mounting of the fenders. Up here I have 4 little holes for these bolts, these smaller bolts here that will get mounted through the wall in between the studs. And then along the bottom of the frame of the trailer I have 7 holes, which these nice big 1/2-inch bolts are going to be going through, and it will be drilled through right through the frame and bolted on the other side. So these fenders will be completely removable if I ever for some reason need to take them off. Just about ready to start painting. Before I do that, I just remembered I have marker lights that I should drill holes for. From the original fenders, they came with this little plastic dingy bit here, and I just took the lights out. They have a little rubber grommet, and so they just fit into a hole. And if I check with my Christmas tree bit, takes roughly a 3/4 inch hole. So I'm gonna put, obviously one's the amber light for the front and one's the red light for the back. I get to wiring that, I'll figure that out, but I just know I need a 3/4 inch hole, and I'll probably put them on center, on the upper portion of the downward angle of the fender itself. So I'll probably put the front marker here and the back marker back here, just probably on center, and it should look nice. So I'm just gonna drill those holes really quick before I paint, because then if I drill them after I paint, then I have to put more paint to touch them up, and I'd rather just paint this once. So I'm gonna do that too. Freaking empties. Gonna do that, and then I should be all set to start painting. Nice. So yeah, right now I'm just sanding all the imperfections out of the paint. I put on my last coat a little too thick, and so it started to drip a bit, as you can see. And then also there's some weird spots here, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, where there's like a glossy area and then a non-glossy area. And this is semi-gloss paint, and I think if I put it on too thick, it tries to get glossy. And so you can sort of see the difference there, and it kind of looks a little patchy. Doesn't look very good. So I'm just gonna sand that down, and I'm gonna make sure that my last couple coats are just a little bit lighter instead of going so heavy, and hopefully that does the trick. So here we go. Fenders are all painted. They turned out really nice. Nice matte finished black. So now I'm going to attempt at installing them on the trailer. I already drilled the holes on this side, the bracket up here, and then the holes have been marked already there. I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up. The trailer's a little dirty because I've been using it. Gonna clamp it in place, make sure everything lines up, and then I'll drill the holes for the bolts. And yeah. Here we go. This is gonna be fun to do solo. I'm gonna attempt to do it, and yeah, let's see what happens here. the fender just temporarily clamped in place. It's not exactly where the bolts line up, but just to show you guys, looking pretty good. Because I already have the holes lined up here done, and I already have the center of these bolt holes on the bottom marked out, I think I'm just going to go ahead and drill the holes, and I can feed the bolts through to get it lined up properly. Okay, so I got my 3 holes here drilled for the back piece of the fender, but the way I think I'm going to do this is actually going to like kind of pre-install the bolts like so, and that way when I'm lifting the fender up I can kind of let it rest on the bolts and keep it in place. Right, so I'm going to start working on the other holes now. Alright, so I got all my bolts through, my holes drilled, as you can see. This one here I have to do after because the cross member from the tongue comes in very close, so I can't bolt from the back. So that one I'll have to do after, but every other bolt is through, and I should be able to now lift the fender into place and hopefully line it up with the bolts and let it sort of sit that way. We'll see if that works. Okay, so that took some time, some finagling, and some fitment, which involved loosening some bolts, retightening some bolts, putting some through, making some holes a little bit bigger. But the fender is now in and installed. I think it's looking amazing. The only thing left I have to do is just wire up the lights, but this thing is super sturdy. It's not going anywhere. It's part of the trailer now, and you can see those 4 bolts there going through the wall, and then I have 3 down there going through the frame, and an additional 4 going through there. So this thing is super sturdy. I can sit on it with no worries. I'll be able to stand on it to access the roof, and it's actually a nice sitting height and a nice working height. So I think I'd be able to come up with some kind of work surface there. Yeah. So that is the passenger side installed. Now I have to do the same for the other side. Okay, that's both fenders now installed. They're nice and secure to the trailer now. It took a little bit of time to get them mounted and get the holes drilled and everything, but now that they're on there, you know, I'm fully confident I can put gear, sit on there, you know, use them as I intend to use them. Part 2 will include the fabrication of the removable ski/ramp portion, as well as the finishing of the fenders. There's a couple little things I need to do, like wire the lights. I'm going to undercoat it and clean a couple little things up, but these are now installed. They're part of the trailer. I'm super happy with how these turned out. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned.